there's no one I can turn to. And I know all the feelings that we shared are in the past. And I know your relationships are never meant to last. And I'll take some time, but I'll be alright. We're moving on, we're moving on.
Kia ora mai tātou. Kua tatu mai te wā hei tīmata tō tātou kaupapa. Just letting you know that we're going to get underway. Kōrehi te manu tākiri mai ko te ata, ka pō ka ao ka watea, a ti hei mauri ora. Tua nau ki rongo o maua o maunga, ka tiro atu ki tua, ki pūwhenua, heke iho ki te awa o kōpūrere rua, e rere mai ana, puta atu ki te waikare ao, te ke te kai o ngai tamarā waho, e ko kōia, e ara e. Tēnei te reo mihi o te haukainga kia koutou kua tatu, I runga I te reo karanga o tēnei kaupapa. Ki a koe, Kirsty, I runga I tō mahi hei whakahaere I tēnei kaupapa o tātou, tēnei rā ka mihi. Tēnei o tauranga moana, te mihi atu ki a koe, hara mai kei wainganui a tātou. O tira ki a koutou o te tēpū, koutou I whai te tūru wera wera, ka waihotia tērā rangatira o tātou a Gary, tēnei rā ka mihi. Huri noa ki a tātou whare, a tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. On behalf of the hapu of this rohe, mai tamarā waho, tai atu ki ngā kāranga maha o tauranga moana, just wanted to welcome you all to our whare and to this kaupapa tonight. My name is Chris Napier. I'm a descendant of the iwi of Tauranga Moana and grew up here in Tauranga at my marae at Huria. So it's my pleasure on our behalf to welcome you here tonight to this kaupapa. My other small job is to get us underway with the karakia. Nō reira, kei noi tātou, let us pray. He honore he kororia ki te atua, he mau ngārongo ki te whenua, he whakaro pai ki ngā tāngata katoa. E pā tēnei mātou e koropiko nei I mua I tō aroaro, me tēnei atu ki a koe, ki a tau o manaakitanga, ki runga ki tēnei hui huinga o tātou. O tira ki a rātou e whai ana I ngā hiahia o te hāpori, āwhina ti a rātou I runga I taua mahi. Ko koe te tīmatanga te otinga o ngā mea katoa, kororia ki tō ingoa tapu. Āmine. Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora, Chris, and thank you so much for the beautiful welcome and karakia. Tēnā koutou katoa, good evening and welcome into tonight's Meet the Candidates Mayoral debate brought to you by the Western Bay of Plenty District Council. Thank you to each and every one of you for taking the time, for coming from near and far to be here tonight. And we're live streaming as well, so there's many more of you watching from home, so a big kia ora to you too. Ko Kirsty Narangi Stanway tōku ingoa. My name is Kirsty Stanway and it is a pleasure to be with you all this evening. This is home for me. I reside in Auckland because of work, but I grew up here, my friends are here, I represented the Western Bay of Plenty, so to come back is just absolutely amazing. So thank you so much for having me. Tonight is a little bit different to what I'm used to. I'm a sports broadcaster for Sky TV, so I literally watch people tackle each other for a living. I'm hoping we won't have any of those antics tonight, and I'm looking at Hori, Bop and Don. So this is your official warning. Please be on your best behaviour tonight. This is we might have to get the cards out or maybe even the whistle as well. This is the Council's first ever debate series, which is really exciting. But if you're sitting here wondering what to expect tonight, well, we're going to have a lot of fun. It's going to be entertaining, but it'll also be very informative. And it's the perfect opportunity for you all to get to know the candidates a little bit better. We're going to put them to the test and get answers to the important issues facing our district. But most importantly, tonight is all about you. We want you to walk away feeling informed before you cast your vote. And don't forget, put it in your calendar because voting day is on October the 8th. Before I introduce our candidates, a little bit of housekeeping. The bathrooms are located down the hallway. Keep going to the very end and they're on your left-hand side. In the unlikely event of an emergency, please exit the building as quickly as possible. There's 2 exits up the front here. Otherwise, make your way to the back of the room, down the stairs, and we'll meet in the back car park. You'll see everyone gathering. Please make sure your mobile phones are on silent. And the really cool thing about today is all of you here or online will actually get the opportunity to participate a little bit later on. We'll tell you more about that as the evening goes on. Thank you to everyone also here or at home that submitted questions in the lead up to this. We'll be putting some of those questions to our candidates tonight, no pressure, but I can't wait to see how you all handle it. And lastly, a big ngā mihi nui. Thank you so much to the University of Waikato for hosting us here this evening. Tomorrow's a busy day for them. Their students are graduating and they've managed to fit us in. So on behalf of the entire council, we couldn't be more thankful for using this incredible facility today. Without further ado, let me introduce you to the people that we're here to see tonight, our mayoral candidates, starting off with Swari Borrell. Thank you so much. Mark Boyle, great to see you tonight. James Denyer. Paul Haimona. Kia ora, Paul. Rodney Joyce. Hori Bop Leeming. John Scrimger. And last but not least, Don Thwaites. We also have Bay of Plenty Regional Council Western Bay candidates Sean Yulin, Ken Shirley joining us tonight. These two have the opportunity to introduce themselves a little bit later on in the evening. Jane Nees and Julian Fitter. I didn't forget you, you're sitting there. Jane sends her apologies. She wasn't able to make it here this evening, but she sent a video in that we'll play to you later on. As you'll be aware, this election also marks a standing down of Mayor Gary Webber. He's held this role for the last 6 years and will begin this evening with an opportunity for Mayor Webber to impart some wisdom for those looking to fill his role and for him to say a farewell and share his thanks to the community. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Mayor Webber to the stage.
Kanui to me, excuse me, kia koutou te hao kāinga. Not too sure about the words of wisdom, but I'll try and do my best. Firstly, to the candidates, all the very best. It's an interesting process you're about to go through. But what I would like you all to be aware, it is not a part-time job you're about to embark upon if you're successful. I also must acknowledge my predecessor, Ross Patterson, and it's good to see you, Ross. We unfortunately, I've just got an email this afternoon, Ross, we have failed at Western Bay. We are no longer in the top 5 for rates in New Zealand. We've been surpassed. So whilst many might say that's bad, I think it's great. The work that you started and I've been able to continue has put Western Bay in a strong place. And that's where I hope whoever takes over from October the 8th will continue that performance of taking us forward. I said it's not a part-time job. Just for instance, Saturday morning we have Carol and I have the opening of the Mayoral Bowling Club. At 6 o'clock we are off to the Waihi Beach Caddy Business Awards. Sunday at 2 o'clock we've got an opening of the Merchant Navy, or commemoration of the Merchant Navy, followed by the opening of the Ames Games at 6 o'clock. There are not many weekends when you get time off. I have found that it takes about 3 days a week, and I get into the offices at about 7:15 in the morning, and I'm there till 4, because there is a hell of a lot of reading to go through, and I'll cover that off later. The process you're going through now is politics, getting yourself elected. But the process you will walk into is governance, and it is a hell of a lot different than fixing somebody's pothole down the road. It is about governing a team of, some would say, disparate individuals to try and get them heading roughly in the same direction. And rest assured, democracy is not a skill test. So what you will have delivered as the mayor, you just have to work and lead as best you can, and that is not always easy. I urge you, when you do get the nod that you are now the Mayor of Western Bay, you start looking at facts and evidence and forget the opinions. There are a lot of wise, opinionated people in the community who unfortunately do not get access to the detail in behind, and I'll cover that a little later on. If you're embarking on the mayoralty, you must understand what the word partnership means. You need to understand Te Tiriti o Waitangi is a partnership between iwi Māori and the others who lived in New Zealand. It is a fundamental requirement. And I give an example. It's not like, well, it's very similar to a marriage. It's not the situation where, well, I own my own home, I've got a couple of kids, which I might, but I need to get married. And you don't walk down the street and find an attractive lady and say, hey, meet me in the church on Saturday, we're going to get married. That is not a partnership. And I have seen in my time in local government far too many people who do not understand the history of our particular area and what is involved in working with iwi Maori for the betterment of all. And I really urge you to think long and hard about your ability to do that, because it is not easy. I go back to my comment about opinion and fact. I've been watching the debate so far, and the opinions about Three Waters, I just hope that everybody who is standing and ambitiously that you're going to get the phone call on Saturday afternoon, October the 8th, you are now the Mayor of Western Bay, that you know what you're walking into. Three Waters is quite emotive, I see, this time round. But for local government, and those of us that have been in it a little while, and I read, local government, as the owners of water assets and the primary providers of Three Waters services, look on the challenges in 2013, 9 years ago, of improving the information base about our water infrastructure, our water industry, service delivery, and establishing the local government New Zealand Three Waters project. In 2015, there was a position paper put out because it had worked out the status quo is unacceptable in New Zealand. Now, I hear the opinions, and they're great, but I just urge you, sometime between now and October the 8th, I will leave it in the office because it started in Ross Patterson's time, the fixing up of the problem in New Zealand to make our rivers swimmable. It is about that high, the papers. And to be able to comment as religiously as some of you have been doing, I've heard you, I'm sure you've read that all of those papers and understood the gaps there are in New Zealand. So I just bring that to the fore as where evidence is critical. And I think Ross started it before I came in, and I've tried to carry the legacy. We at Western Bay try and take the emotion out of the debate and stick to the issues and focus on what is best for the Western Bay ratepayers. And I go back to my opening comment about the Taxpayers Union. We have successfully shifted Western Bay from having the highest rates in New Zealand to being in about the middle of the pack. And we are staying, and thanks Rodney for nodding your head in approval, we have done really well, and I wish you all the very best for the candidacy that you're aiming for to be the Mayor of Western Bay. It is not an easy role, but it is one that I have found really enjoyable doing. And on behalf of myself and the council, for those of you from outside of the council in the community, and Mary, I see you here tonight, my wise council, it has been great working with you all across the district, and I think we've made Western Bay a significant part of the combined wider, I see John Robson here from Tauranga City. Tauranga City is the small bit geographically. Where all the wealth is and where the income is generated is out in Western Bay. So I pass the baton to whoever it is and wish you all the very best. And thank you for tonight.
Thank you so much, Mayor, and thank you for all your service over the last 6 years as well. Well, we've got an amazing agenda this evening, so we'll get cracking into it very shortly. First, we'll start off with getting to know your candidates. This is very much the warm-up. The main event, your leadership and vision. This is where we put the leadership skills to the test. After that, we'll tackle some of the big issues facing local government in our district. And we'll take a quick breather at that moment and We will then get you to vote via Slido. We'll let you know about that a little bit later on, but everyone in the room will have their chance to explain what they want to hear from these people. And we'll finish off with a yes or no section to finish. Let's get stuck into it then. Getting to know your candidates. Greer has the clock on. You each have 60 seconds to introduce yourself and explain why you would like to be mayor of this incredible district. And we'll start off with you, Soare.
Kia ora, tōna whalawa. My name's Soare Burrell. I descend from a family who have lived on the same road in the same house for 130 years in Ross Road. I'm a business owner, ratepayer, valued family member. My background is in advising, planning and strategy, procurement and service delivery of services across a whole range of services. My mindset is different to the other candidates. By design, I bring a different set of skill and a different tenacity to the way that I'll execute the role. I've held various governance roles. I was the Māori student president at the University of Auckland. At the same time, we moved from compulsory to voluntary student membership, so I understand what it is to work in a really hot climate, and I'd love to fold in my expertise as a consultant that has led interventions and services in the community. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Mark, over to you.
Okay, kia ora and good evening. I bring a great deal of business and governance experience. For more than a decade, I've been involved in local economic development and community wellbeing. I bring strong leadership, communication skills, strategic capability, good chairmanship, a collaborative and inclusive style, and the discipline to be outcome focused. I will ensure we have 4 strong pillars of best governance: a strategy, risk management, performance monitoring and corrective action as required, a good culture at the council table and through the council organisation. I believe in the pursuit of excellence, in full, on time, in-spec delivery of services, an enabling council, progress, growth and development. I will listen to all of our communities of interest and what their priorities are. I will ensure we're aligned to the pillars of local government: economic, social, cultural and environmental. I will make sure our communities are safe, well-serviced, satisfied and sustainable.
Thanks very much, Mark. James.
Tēnā koutou. My name is James Denyer. I'm a current councillor and chair of 2 council committees. I have a background in science, graduating with a master's degree in chemistry from Oxford University. I then spent 10 years working in corporate finance in London, and during this time I also joined the bid team for the London Olympics, where I formulated the $2.5 billion operating budget. Liaising with central government and many other stakeholders was a critical part of the job. I've lived in Katikati for 13 years and have been heavily involved in the local community. In the social sector, I'm chair of the Whirihere Te Araki Mua, the community-led development group, and a past president of Katikati Rotary. In the environmental sector, I'm chair of Angotiti Forest Project, which looks after 500 hectares of the Kaimai. I'm also on the board of Bay Conservation Alliance, which assists conservation groups in the Bay from Waihi Beach to Opotiki. I feel I have the skills and experience to make a positive impact with collaborative leadership, hard work and a younger perspective. I've really enjoyed my last 3 years as a councillor and look forward to serving the community as mayor.
Thanks very much, James. Kia ora, Paul.
Tēnā koutou katoa. My name is Paul Haimuna. I'm going to tell you how I got here. It was with my friend Juliet and her friend Stephen. We were having a cup of coffee at the fish and chip shop. Stephen is talking to Juliet about joining the community board, but she wouldn't be in it. And he walked away and he said in a soft voice, actually we need a chairperson. And I put up my hand and I said, I'm a good chairperson. He said, who are you? I said, Paul Haimuna. Where do you live? I said, up by the St Thomas Church. Whose house is that? Dorothy Pihema, Kotene, my stepfather. He said, oh yeah. Oh yeah, okay then. So I go into the Te Puke library and pick up a form. And they give me the form for councillor. Juliet said, you got the wrong form. I said, that's okay. I don't know how to do a community board either. So I go into the first meeting, and I think the lady, what's her name? Rachel Davis. She was talking to these guys, right? The people who are in the council. And she said, you know, you councillors, you can run for mayor as well. And I said, can I? She went, yes. I said, hook me up.
Thanks
Now,
very
since
much,
then,
Paul.
I've become interested in reading, and that's all I got to say.
Thank you, Paul. You're up, Rodney.
I'm up? Okay. My rates bill arrived today. I get them in the email. Half of the rates for my property, it's a three-bedroom weatherboard house down Park Road in Katikati, it's not a posh area, is Three Waters. This council faces major changes in the next 3 years. And how we go about our business will have a direct impact on our ratepayers and residents in a way that, as Mayor Webber mentioned, has been talked about and worked towards. I do oppose Three Waters. I'm with the Auditor General, who's independent, and said it's undemocratic and the water companies will be responsible to no one. I don't like the fact this thing's being driven by large international water companies out to make a profit. But more importantly, there's a second issue with Three Waters. You know, we're going to have a massive hole in our income next year as a council. And we have two choices. One is to keep the rates under control because the money that we take out of our budget will go to the water company, or to double charge people. You know, if we keep the rates where they are and then people have to pay huge water bills to the water company, that is going to have a dramatic effect on our ratepayers and residents. Now, I'm for open government. I don't like the fact that major meetings can be all over in 21 minutes. I'm for transparency. And I'm for developing our assets over time. But I am not in favour of the huge spending splurge underway in the current 10-year plan
Thanks
of
very much,
$150
Rodney.
million borrowing. Okay, thank you.
Hori Buff, over to you.
Kia ora folks. As you know, my alter ego, Hori Bop, but I was born Hori Terence Alfred Leeming. My family's been here in Tauranga since 1967, and my wife, I'm married with 4 children. My wife whakapapas to the Hokianga through Te Rarawa, and she also whakapapas down to Pirirako through the Faulkner line. I was armed with my UE off to University of Otago and took a sidestep and ended up in the Navy and as a medic, and then I became a Navy diver because I felt like a challenge, wanted to be challenged, and being a Navy diver was quite the challenge. And did my 8 years and then drove launches for a couple of years and off went walkabout, and great time of life. And since I've been back, I've been a commercial fisherman, I've helped run a health food company, I've been a farmer, or farmhand, and being a house father. At present, I'm a tour coach driver, although I've been doing long haul driving to keep myself busy and happy. And I live within the Tauranga City Council boundary, not far from the boundary to the Western Bay of Plenty. When I did come back to Tauranga in about the late 80s, I lived in Te Puke. My wife was a teacher in Te Puke for 2 years at the intermediate there, and I also lived in Katikati when I was a young fella for a little while. Don't remember too much of Katikati.
I have to stop you there, sorry, Hori. Time's
That's
up.
it.
And I've got to be fair
That's
to
me.
everyone.
Yep, no,
Thanks so much.
that's fine.
John, your turn.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Good evening to you all. I've been a resident of our great district for more than 40 years, farming east of Te Puke for all that time. I've served on numerous community and industry organisations. 9 years ago, I was prevailed upon to stand for council, and the rest is history. But over that time, I have chaired several of council's committees, and for the past 3 years, I have been the deputy mayor. I'm also a qualified RMA commissioner with the chair's endorsement, and I'd love to be able to tell you that that's helped me to understand the RMA, but I might be stretching a point there. Nevertheless, all those experiences, I believe, have equipped me to lead this council into the next era. Thank you.
Thanks so much, John. Don, you're next.
Kia ora, good evening everyone. Excuse me. My name's Don Thwaites. Western Bay of Plenty's been my home for the last 50 years. Finished my primary schooling at Te Puna School, attended Otamoto College and then gained a degree in accounting and finance at Massey University. From then, my career path took a slight divergence and kiwifruit's pretty much been my occupation for the last 40 years. I've served close on 5 terms on the Western Bay of Plenty Council, came in at the passing of Mayor Graham Weld and Ross's elevation to the mayoralty. I won a by-election there. So I have been part of 14 budgets of the Western Bay of Plenty. During that time, that's 5 3-year budgets. They're called 10-year budgets, but they get hashed around every 3 years. So I have a pretty good idea. I've been chairman of one of the major committees of council for the last 9 years. That's the Operations, Performance and Monitoring. Gary added to that this term, where we do the performance and monitoring. I'm married to Caroline, have 3 children. Whoa, gone. It's a minute.
A minute is very quick. It is very quick. But you're going to have a lot more time over the next hour. Thank you so much, Don. As I've just realised, 60 seconds is not a long time, but most of them, they nailed it. Now that we've gotten to know our candidates a little bit better, it's time to ask some of the hard questions. So I hope you're all ready for this. This will test your leadership and vision. I'll put a question to you all. You will all answer it. We'll go down the line. You'll have 90 seconds to respond. And once again, the timer is on. We'll start off this time with you, Mark, and head down the table and finish with Swarui. First and foremost, what do you see as the top 3 issues facing the Western Bay of Plenty district right now, and how do you propose we fix those?
Okay, thank you. So, first and foremost, we are an aspirational place to live, and we have very, very strong economic drivers. So, primary production, particularly kiwi fruit, which continues to grow at an amazing rate. We have the Rangiuru Business Park coming, and of course secondary industry and all those service industries will continue to flourish. With that comes a need for housing. We have a requirement to focus on infrastructure delivery and good planning to enable housing not only in our urban centres but also in our rural areas. So council needs to find ways in which to make the process simpler than it currently is, to make it swift, to make sure that it's compliant obviously, but to work with developers, investors, entrepreneurs and others that want to help solve the housing problem in sync with the major economic drivers. The issue of 3 waters is part and parcel of that. It's very emotive, it's been terribly communicated, but I think really what it highlights is that the government seems intent on taking away the local from local government. So, whilst we've been very successful, one can only see a future where they want to take the water, then come the roads, and ultimately council will end up being a handmaiden to central government and will really only have the minor things to manage.
Thanks, Mark. James.
Yeah, the top 3 issues for me would be housing, transport and government reform. So with housing, there's obviously a housing shortage and affordability problems there. Council is moving to fix those. We're going to develop our elder housing, and there are exciting plans in the east for houses out there. Transport, obviously you've got, I'm a passionate supporter of the Kadikadi bypass. I also want to advocate for the TNL Stage 2. And I was hearing yesterday about the roading situation in Te Puke, just the congestion there, and some of the roads just need general upgrading. Government reform, it's not just 3 waters, as Mark says, that's a very important part of it. It's RMA reform, and it's the future for local government review. These are all coming up very soon in the next term, major issues, and some of them, things like RMA, have the potential to be more impactful on council's business than 3 water reform. So they're the 3 big issues and risks that I see, and that's what I do to fix them.
Thank you very much, James. Paul, the timer is on.
Thank you, Kirsty. My issue is slavery, and that's in the kiwi fruit industry, where we've got RSEs, RSEs that are in buildings with 10 other people, with bunks. That shouldn't be in this day and age in my country. The industry, and it's been doing, I talk to the people on the street from Vanuatu. That's why they're out late at night. It's not comfortable at their home. So slavery I'm going to impact. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take those people that are doing that to workers that are helping them, I'm going to take them to court. It's criminal, and that's my view. No one else's, only my view. The second is homelessness. Let's talk about homelessness. What do people do with homelessness? What we do as Māori, we have a marae. We can feed 200-300 people easily. So why don't we have a building? There's a lot of buildings in Te Puke. They're empty. Have a building there so the cops can take these homeless people, feed them, bath them, and put them back out in the streets again. The last thing is security. We all want to walk safe on our streets. You have wardens. I see older men and women walking our streets in the daytime, just checking to make sure everybody's okay. I've spoken to a couple of them sometimes. I think it's wonderful. How do we do that? How do we enhance that? That's all I have to say. Thanks, Kirsty.
Thank you, Paul. Rodney, your turn.
Guess what? I'm going to mention rates. So, with due respect to Mayor Webber, unfortunately our rates are still in the top quarter. The survey that came out today missed, it was before last year's big increase. We need to balance rates and investment. There's no doubt about that. We can't stop investing, but we need a better balance. The current 10-year plan calls for debt of nearly $300 million by the end of it. No plan to pay it back. That would generate, at current interest rates, $12 million of interest bill a year. That's enough to build a couple of libraries. So what we need to do is spread things out. Yes, we need to continue to invest in libraries. Yes, we need to continue to invest in roads. Yes, looks like we're going to have to invest a little bit in housing because the plan for housing to fund itself for the elderly is proving more difficult. But with inflation taking off, construction costs taking off, interest rates taking off, we have to be very careful or we'll have another big rates increase next year. The second thing is Three Waters. My stance is fairly well known, but the risk here is that when a large amount of revenue disappears next year, and we're all going to still pay that revenue, right? We're still going to face big water bills. We'll just pay it to somebody else. The risk there is that the council will try and keep rates where they are or not give back those savings properly, in which case you'll be paying twice. The rates you're paying now and the big water bill to the Hamilton Company. The third thing is I'd like to see a bit more open governance and humility in the way the council deals with its public. You know, there's a perception out there that the council will move on and do what it wants to do regardless of the feedback. Now, that's an unfortunate perception, and I think we need to work on that through open governance and humility to work with our people and not be quite so top-down.
Thanks,
Yes,
Rodney. That's 90 seconds.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're running a tight ship here, Hori Bok. Your turn.
I'm keeping time, folks. Well, kia ora, kia ora. I would say infrastructure, and under infrastructure would come housing and roading. It all costs, and as you've heard from Rodney just saying now, rates is be high on a lot of people's priority, I would say. But the roading in particular, it's a tough one to deal with because we have to deal with NZTA, and I see one of the most important roads to deal with at the moment is State Highway 29 to get traffic through to the port. It's got to go through Western Bay, and the people from the rural sector have to be, a lot of them do commute in town. You've got the bypass at Katikati, you've got the road from Mokoroa to Te Puna, you've got the bypass that's needed at Te Puke, because I've actually been stuck in congestion at Te Puke now, and also that road in Welcome Bay has to be finished. There's an area there by Adeline Transport, which is in a shocking state, and they've just banged a whole lot of patches in there. Another thing that I've picked up by being at all the candidate meetings so far is a little bit of unity. I think it's a unique region where you've got quite a large geographical area, to try and deal with. And I think there needs to be a little bit more communication and unity within the between, say, Te Puke and Katikati and Mokoroa. I think that needs to be addressed. And a third thing I'd like to do is bring an event stadium to the Western Bay of Plenty. Tauranga City Council have been mucking around with it for about 20 years and haven't been able to achieve it, so let's have it at Te Puke.
Thank you. John.
Okay, I believe the three biggest issues facing our region right now are housing, roading and jobs. Housing, we have huge issues in terms of people sleeping on the streets, living in substandard accommodation in their cars and all those things. We need a significant increase in housing supply to accommodate those needs and all the people who want to come in this wonderful part of the world. And it's highlighted too in our roading shortcomings. It's great to see some work going on. We're really blessed in our part of the world to have the TEL for a number of years now. It's awesome to see work going on at Bay Park to Bay Fair, and we'd love to see that actually completed and you're able to drive through there instead of crawling through. And it's awesome to see work underway on the TNL, or at least the first part of it. However, one of the issues highlighted to me a couple of years ago when I read a Smart Growth paper was that in the early 1950s, the total population of the Western Bay of Plenty was about 15,000 people. In other words, about 1.5% of New Zealand's population. Today, it is more than 4% of New Zealand's population. That's really rapid growth. So, sorry, I'll have to stop there by the sound of that.
Thanks, John. Everyone gets exactly the same amount of time. So, Don, your 90 seconds starts now.
Great. Thanks. My three issues are external influences, which is a pretty big topic, housing and transportation. External influences involve the future of local government. That evaluation's going on now. There's no secret that amalgamation is being talked about in Wellington, possibility of 14 councils nationwide, which would basically mean whoever's sitting at this table could well be the last mayor of the Western Bay of Plenty. Three Waters reform is certainly an agenda. I'm not going to dive into that now. RMA reform, and I see a few RMA experts in the room, and the proposal to that is to solve it by creating 3 new acts, which is going to simplify it. Yeah, right. So that's a real challenge. Housing, if you've read my Facebook page, you'll see I propose to elevate housing to a full committee of council. We've got to work alongside central government, social housing providers, developers, and our own district plan review to free up and make housing affordable and happen. Transport, absolute passion of mine. But realistically, you know, this government collects $100 billion a year in tax and GST. NZTA has a budget of $4 billion a year. If I just rattle through, Auckland Light Rail, $14 billion. Wellington, get Wellington moving, $7 billion. Christchurch freeing up, $5 billion. A new crossing over Auckland, $20 billion. Let's get Tauriko moving, $2 billion. There is a huge amount of competition for $4 billion, so some solutions have to be found. And Kirsty's going to shut me down. But
Thanks,
I'll
Don.
have to talk for half an hour. Thank you.
Swari, thanks for being so patient. Your turn.
Thank you. I'd like to applaud the calibre of the responses from the other candidates. I think they were bang on. My particular 3 issues would be infrastructure related to housing and highways, so anything to do with the roading, and government reforms, mainly looking at the Future of Local Government Act. I take a view that that will involve a constitutional lens, and that I would be well placed to guide this council on how we might undertake that. So there will be some serious changes from that review, and they will impact the everyday business of the council. My everyday business, my everyday job involves determining the value and the merit of actions from people who are spending our money, and yeah, I would like to apply that expertise into these places. I also hold that Tauranga became the nightmare that it did because it had a failure to execute the plan of the city, and I wouldn't want to end up like Tauranga. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Swari. Not bad at all. Your next question, and this time around we'll start with you, James. What makes a strong council, and how will your leadership skills support this? When you're ready.
Yeah, I'll just take a moment to think. As a strong council, it comes from the top. So you need a good leader, a collaborative leader, with the skills to manage the disparate views and personalities around the table. The Mayor, through his Section 41A rights, gets to set the committees, and he provides the leadership to the team. So and after that, it's working together, executing the vision of the council as a whole, and that's what makes a strong council. What was the second part of the question?
That was it.
That was it?
That was it.
Good,
Thank
thanks.
you. Thanks so much, James. Paul, for you.
Kia ora. What makes a good council? It doesn't come from the top, in my view. It comes from a person being willing to work with other people. So if I had a councillor working on a particular thing, what do I need to do to them to make them win at their accountability? And you know what they're doing? They're doing the same back to me. They're looking at me to try and make me win at my accountability. It alters the framework of leadership. Leadership is not like, oh, well, you're going to do that, oh, you're going to do that. Not in my line. It is people empowering other people so that they can be empowered back. Ko motu.
Thank you very much, Paul. Rodney.
I'd pick up from what Paul said. It is a team. It's a team. Everybody gets one vote. I mean, occasionally the mayor might get two. But you want to avoid those situations where you have to exercise those casting votes too often. You have a group of people with different backgrounds. Even at this table, we have many different backgrounds. I mean, you don't ask. It's very dangerous to use an all-black metaphor at the moment, isn't it? You know, you've got props, you've got halfbacks, you've got wingers. You know, you don't expect everybody to have the same background or skills, and you work with those people. I have done that. I run my own business. I've grown that business. Before I did that, I was a journalist for 30-odd years, and including covering local government, which is where I've learned a little bit about it, covering Dame Kath in Auckland and James Ballach in Wellington. And then I became a bit of a turnaround specialist for the corporate world of Reuters, fixing up operations. I'm not saying the council's broken, that's not fair, but I mean, I believe in change. But I think we need to work together, staff and the council, on what's important. And if we do that, we can achieve great things, despite the many, many areas of interference coming from central government, which has always been there. I'd love to know how many times the Local Government Act's been modified in the last 20 years, right? All governments meddle in local government. So we need a strong team, and we need to work as a team. And I think, as Paul says, that's how you achieve great things.
Thank you, Rodney. Hori Bob, for you.
Kia ora, Kirsty. So I've seen around the candidates meetings, we've got some talented candidates actually out there, but we've got quite a varied bunch, and that's the skill of a mayor, is not as an authoritarian, but as a collaborator to try and pull them all together to work in the correct decision. Yes, we've got our statutes that we've got to set committees and so on, but we need a very, very good communicator and a very good listener as a mayor so that they can try and get the best out of their team. And without that, the council goes nowhere. A good example are schools. Now, you can have some extremely good teachers in the schools, as my wife is a teacher, but if you haven't got a good headmaster setting the kaupapa and then trying to stick to the kaupapa of the people and encouraging the strengths that you've got as those teachers to work towards that, well, then the school goes nowhere, and the next minute the commissioners are sent in. And that's the same with councils as well, and that's the same role for mayor and the same role for the councils that get elected by you. We don't get told who we select as councillors. We get told by you, the people, and we have to make the best of that. And you can only get the best of that with good, solid, communicative leadership and good listening skills.
Thank you, Hori Bob. John.
A good council is one that works together as a team. Given that councillors are elected by the people from a range of different backgrounds, that's no easy task. I believe that I have diplomacy skills, unlike quite different perhaps to Trevor Mallard's, but I'm also told that I'm a good listener, and I believe that I have the skills to take a group of individuals and help shape them into a team that works together.
Thank you, John. Don?
Thanks. As I said before, I've served under 2 mayors, I've served under 5 deputy mayors over that time. I've learnt a lot. I've spent, like I said, the last 9 years chairing a committee. I believe I've been fair to all the people in those committees, given them ample time to speak. I think to build a good team, even though my name is Donald T, I'm not going to be the president of the, like a certain other Donald T. I'm certainly going to be one of the team, hopefully the one sitting in the big chair at the top, hopefully not having to exercise a casting vote. Because John's just spoken, I'm going to really drop him in it now, because I'm going to break the run of 5 different deputy mayors over the last 15 years. And if I am elected, I'm going to actually retain this gentleman as my deputy mayor, so he's going to serve a 2nd term. But that's a bit mean, because that's just the way I am. But he knows I love him to bits. Evidence-based decision-making. There's obviously going to be 4 or 5 new councillors around the table. We have to get them up to speed. They're going to have to do a lot of reading. We've got to make sure the right evidence is in front of them, and we work collaboratively from there. Thanks, Kirsty.
Thank you. You're doing very well sticking to time. Swari, for you, what makes a strong council?
I think it's really about understanding the thresholds of accountability and the nuances of partnership when you're working with people. So again, in the roles that I've had as an evaluator, I often walk between the funded and the funder, and I call that the valley of doubt as I walk between these 2 people trying to deliver and procure services. I really want to talk to what Gary said tonight about, paying attention to the evidence. I deal with evidence every day, trying to ascertain what is of impact to particular services. And I just say that we need to be able to have leaders who inspire and influence others and are able to respond with vision and agility. So working in an uncertain time requires leadership that is courageous and able to do things differently. That's where I live and work every day as an evaluator, walking between, as I said, those who spend the money and those who deliver the services.
Thank you. Mark, your turn.
So I think first and foremost, the elected members understanding governance and realising that they have some incredibly powerful tools. They own the vision of the council, they have the district plan, they have a long-term plan, they have an annual plan. All of those things need to be outcome driven, so it's the ability of the mayor to be able to listen, to be patient, to bring the group along, to utilise the strength of the team, to build relationships regionally and nationally, to create a value proposition that can be promoted both nationally and internationally. From that flows business attraction and new investment, etc., to grow the district. I think the other key point is that the council should be outcome driven and clearly aligned with the management. So the management understand what it is that the council is setting out to achieve, what those outcomes are, being very specific, measurable, achievable, relevant and time bound in what we're trying to do. A collegial nature, and understanding that governance means 4 strong pillars, clear direction, strong management, and working together to realise the goals and the aspirations of the people that we serve. So I think with good skills, good listening patience, as I've said before, and facing the hard decisions, and ultimately being determined to see through what we agree to do, that we can be a very committed and cohesive council.
Thank you very much, Mark. Well, we've had some great answers so far. Your 3rd question in this section, we're going to start off with you this time, Paul. Take a moment. Sorry? Take a moment if you need to digest the question, but this one has been sent in. It's from Paula Gaelic, so thank you for your question, Paula. What would you do, Paul, in your role as Mayor to ensure the council is catering to the diverse needs of the community?
That's a great question. And it's an answer that we all know how to address it. And that's called being inclusive. Include people. Don't ostracize people. Include them in the community. Ask me about gangs. Include them in the community. They're not what we want, but nor is bad weather. Inclusiveness. Our diverse population of immigrants. Include them. For goodness sake, they're helping us out. They're doing work that we can't do ourselves. Kumatu, Kirsty.
Finish, thank you. Thanks, Paul. Rodney, how about you?
I guess humility comes to mind. Talk with people, listen to people. Don't consult and then, on what colour the concrete path should be, but ask people, what do you want to do in your area? Allow people to say, I like the status quo, which is sometimes missing. I think we need to approach our ratepayers and residents with an open heart. We have different needs, different expertise, and often the path forward will actually be better than what we thought of at the table or in Barks Corner. Let's be open, really open, in a way that perhaps could be improved on from where we are now. We need to accept our differences, right? If you talk about anything to do with council out in the public, you get some very strong opinions, as Mayor Webber has pointed out. We need to be evidence-based, but we need to share that evidence and actually, let people come along with us a lot more. That's all I've got.
Thank you. Corey Bob.
Well, you've got to take the people with you. If you don't take the people with you, you've lost right from the very go. And I think Mr. Putin's starting to realise that now. You can't go in gung-ho, bombs blazing and so on, without a ground game. If you don't have a ground game, you're custard. You get bogged down. And that's what's happening to them at the moment. And this is what happens to councils as well. When you don't go into the ground game, going out to the community boards, going out to community meetings, and seeing what people are actually saying at grassroots level, at ground level, well then how are you going to be able to make good decisions at the council table, because you don't know what the people are thinking or what they actually want. And then you work your way up from there. You don't tell people what they're going to get or what they want, what they need, and then work down from there. It's got to be grassroots upwards. And that takes being good for a good listener. It takes everyone, councillors and the mayor, getting out in the motu, getting out in the community, getting out and finding out and going to these meetings. A good example was at Whakamaramara when I went at the meeting up there about 1 or 2 weeks ago, and a few ratepayers had quite a concern that they weren't being listened to on a particular issue out there. And when the meeting finished, 2 councillors dived around them and wanted to know what the problem was and why it hadn't been sorted and so on and so on. I thought they were council staff, but they turned out to be councillors. And I thought to myself, why didn't they know about this problem? Why were they unaware of this problem until now, or unaware that it hadn't been solved? They should have been out there and known about it.
Thank you. John.
Great. I believe it's about listening to people, listening to everybody, not just the serial people who want to communicate with council, but people who are reasonably remote from council and don't normally engage. I think our council's made some great efforts over the last few years to go to places where people are, rather than specifically asking them to respond about particular issues. Sure, there's a lot more we can do in that space, and I believe there will be a lot of further opportunities, and people with smarter brains than mine will think of new ways to engage with people and to hear what they're wanting to happen in their communities. But it's absolutely about listening to the people.
Thanks, John. Don.
Thanks, Kirsty. I have mentioned, published on my Facebook page, my proposed organisational structure for the new council. That will replace the 3 current separate ward committees and push them all into a one community committee. I've proposed we will go out and we will meet the communities in their place at Karikari, at Waihi Beach, at Te Puke, at Makatu. We will go and talk to the people, give them ample opportunity to talk to their councillors. I'd also like to tweak our partnership relationship that Gary's established this time. We've changed it a few times over the years. We have a Te Aroa-based iwi relationship in the east. We have Te Aroa Moana in the west. I would love to go out to their marae, meet them on their patch, talk about it, and when we meet together, bring both major groups and the councillors together. I'd like to do that in the council chambers, but that's going to take some talking, so we'll do it. Rates are a crude way of our income goes. They are based 30% we can only collect by way of fixed charges, 70% are based on valuation. We can't be everything to everyone. If we focus on our basics, our 3 Rs being reserves, roads and rubbish, and the 3 Ws, which we still have for at least another year of the 3 waters, you know, that is a big chunk of our basic. That's what we've got to do. We are 0.1% of the nation's budget of what the government takes in tax. So they get 99.9%, we get 0.01, sorry. We can't be everything to everyone, but we can certainly use our strength to advocate for.
Thank you, Don. Swari.
Kia ora tātou. So I think it really rests on your understanding of diversity, and I'd like to share the view that diversity is about understanding the complementary ways rather than the contradictory ways that people work together. So in terms of diversity, I am diverse from the candidates beside me tonight. I am female, I am Māori, I am currently in a relationship with a woman of 15 years. I am everything the other candidates are not. In terms of diversity, I think it calls that there needs to be some unified actions, obviously, in this role as mayor, that we can have a unified action, but we don't have to have a uniform response to what's happening to each of these communities. I also think it's really important to understand that the most important place for diversity is in your mindset, because it is your mind that determines what you value, and through your mind you also determine the things that you understand. I bring a lot, and I will bring a lot to the role, and just by my existence. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Swari. Mark, just in case you need a reminder, what would you do in your role as mayor to ensure the council is catering to the diverse needs of the community?
Thank you, Kirsty. So first and foremost, understanding our diversity, whether it be ethnicity, cultural identity in the 21st century, LGBTQIA+, thought, thinking processes, values. So first and foremost, the council, councillors understanding that, management understanding it. But I think then the next step is to bring people together from all of those diverse groups so that they can learn to understand the difference between one another. I think we need to understand in that diversity people's aspirations. We need to understand the negotiables and the non-negotiables from their perspective. And diversity in action means that we should set goals. They need to be achievable, we need to be patient, and we need to make progress. Now, if we don't understand each other and we don't foster and care for our diversity, we'll end up in division. And so the United States is a classic example of division. I lived there for many years. So diversity is to be celebrated, diversity is to be protected, and diversity needs to be widely understood, and I would endeavour to make that a major goal or a work program for the council boards and the council management and staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Last but not least, James.
Yeah, so to make sure we're catering to the needs of the community, you need to look to the full well-beings, social, economic, cultural and environmental. And we need to listen well and consult, as some of the others have said, and make sure everyone's included in this. And council's actually done quite a good job in trying to reach out to those people. I recall the LTP consultation sessions from last year, Fun Days, so that younger people could be more involved. Rather than just going to a hall and just talking to people, it's fun for the community, for families. Localism is important too. That's where you really listen to the people on the ground, as it were, who want what they want. I was lucky enough to be a member of 2 of our community boards, Karikari and Waihi Beach. but I also attended almost all the Mayoral Community Board meetings and a fair few of Te Puke and Makatu as well, just to hear what they were actually thinking. And I also made time to go to the consultations around the district, whether it's in Pukahina or Te Puke, dog park at Lawrence Oliver Park, for instance, and what they want to do at Midway Park in Pukahina. So I've done that. I've been on the ground, I've listened to people, and that's the way we should do it, so that we can understand their needs fully. So the other aspect is community-led. Council should be helping people to achieve their own aspirations, whether it's through matching grants or helping them do the work themselves.
Well done. Thanks so much, James. And that is it for your leadership and vision section. Next, we move to the meaty part. This is part 3. An important part of being mayor is to think strategically. So, this next questions, we'll have 90 seconds once again. The first one will start off with you, Rodney, and continue making our way down the table before we come back again, just so that everyone gets a chance to start. The first one, National Party leader Christopher Luxon has pledged to repeal the Three Waters reform if elected in 2023. How are you going to ensure Council is prepared for either scenario, implementation in 2024 or repeal?
It's an interesting one because the water companies are supposed to be up and running next year. And so there's going to be massive change one way, and there could well be massive change back another way. I do notice that the National Party has not said they're going to go back to the status quo. They've said they'll repeal and replace. Act says they'll just straight repeal. The issues are real, right? And there's some things the government has done well with Three Waters. The new regulator is needed. And I don't think there's many people in local government who oppose that, because the Ministry of Health and the regional councils, the split responsibility wasn't working. The other thing the government did do well is make councils talk together. I have a customer actually from Balclutha. Now Balclutha has 12 small communities and really is struggling with its Three Waters. Right? They can't get the engineers to move to Balclutha to run the thing. They're very fragmented. So what the solution that Otago and Southland came up with last year was to do an Otago-Southland water company. Hawke's Bay did the same, under pressure from the government. They may not have got there without it. And I gather, and people that have been involved longer than me will no doubt know, that Bay of Plenty was moving the same way. So it's not a matter of just throwing away all the work and going back, oh, no, we'll just do it ourselves again. If there is a better way, we should embrace it. But a better way means some local say, not ringing Hamilton because you've got a leak, and hoping that the big water company contract will allow them to pop out at some stage.
Thanks, Rodney. Corey Bob.
Well, folks, as Gary said, do all of us really understand Three Waters? If you want to go through a manual about that thick to try and understand what's actually been proposed. And do we go to unitary authorities to solve this problem? Do we go to amalgamations of councils? What's going to happen? Well, we're not quite sure. Well, if you read that manual, you'll be a little bit more sure under Labour. We're not quite sure if National gets back in. So you've got to deal with what you get at the time. My own personal view is that why should good councils that have behaved properly and within compliance levels be penalised by bad councils? The good example would be Napier and Hastings. Hastings created the Havelock North situation where people were getting poisoned and possibly dying, and Napier says, no, we don't want to join with you, we don't want to amalgamate with you, we're running our own ship. Fine, thanks, why should we be punished by you through amalgamation? What's my solution? Well, my solution is simple, to leave the assets with the different councils that we've got. And if you've got to have a strong, robust regulatory authority with compliance. This is the level that you've got to get your standards up to, and you've got this amount of time to do it if you haven't achieved that. And to help you, the ones that are struggling to achieve that, give them an interest-free loan over a set term, 30 years, 40 years, the life of the infrastructure. And the most important part is collate all the expertise to help these councils do it instead of spreading them amongst all the different councils.
Thank you. John.
Thanks, Kirsty. As you said, the National Party has said that they would repeal this bill, but as Rodney quite rightly pointed out, they've also said they'll replace it, but we've got no idea what they'll replace it with. One of the big struggles I have with the current proposals that we have before us is that we here in the Bay of Plenty are placed in Entity 2 in conjunction with Waikato and Taranaki. Taranaki is a hang of a long way away from the Bay of Plenty, and it's really hard to understand the practicalities of how that will work. When I've raised that issue, I've been told, well, they had to make the entities that big to gain the economies of scale. Well, I think we could retain some localism perhaps by having boundaries akin to regional council boundaries, and government could set up a purchasing agency which the water authorities could then purchase things from. In this day and age, that wouldn't need to be too complicated. They wouldn't need an extensive yard filled with pumps and pipes and whatever. They'd simply need a computer screen and someone to man that and handle the orders. So that's how I would propose to address the issue.
Thanks very much, John. Your chance to rip in, Don.
Great. John, it's good to see John's read a few of my papers I've published on them, my thoughts on Three Waters and around provincial basis. There are two parts of this discussion that Labor Party just don't want to address. One is funding growth. That is one part of the equation. And the second one is repairing century-old problems like Wellington have got, like Auckland have got, spending their $1 billion building their central interceptor. Those two need to be separated apart. I believe that the solution does lie in a Bay of Plenty collective of the 6 councils. We already work with Tauranga City. We've got a joint contract with Downers for maintenance. They work over both councils already. The 3 catchments for Tauranga City are all located in the Western Bay of Plenty. It flows into it. Mayoral is joined by a pipeline to Tauranga. That is our future. We look at our other partners in the Bay of Plenty. Kawerau have enjoyed a great spot. You know, they pay $70 a year for unmetered water. Their wastewater is $180. Under Three Waters, man, have some of those communities got a shock coming if everything's going to be standardised. And you talk to the people of Waitara, and you talk to the people of Frankton, and you talk to all around the place. Man, have they got some news coming to them. So they might not be so favourable with Labor's policy when they really realise the implications that's coming up the lift. So I do believe that's the way. Currently, collectively, the 67 councils in New Zealand have a $7.7 billion debt on waters. It's projected to spin out to $50 billion under this Ponzi scheme that's called Three Waters. I disagree with Gary Webber completely. It is unsustainable. We're just going to pass on to our grandchildren a massive debt. It's going to have to be taken into state debt, and at some stage a right-leaning government's going to sell 49% of it off. That's the only future ahead under the Three Waters proposal, in my view.
Thanks, Don. Swarry.
So I understand the question from a view of trying to ascertain the goodwill of political entities, and I think you need more than 90 seconds to undertake that. My idea of the tensions between central and local government around the decisions that they make, they will do what they do. My focus is on bringing community voice to those tables and ensuring that the Mayor is a good steward of the process, so focusing on ensuring that there's a high quality engagement process, re-engagement and ongoing. I see them as a series of ongoing conversations because there are convergent and divergent interests that get impacted on the proposals that currently stand. I really believe that communication is key to great relationships, and I don't know. I think it's important to understand that rush reform has never worked in the history of anything, and I would be willing to take a more informed view and ensure that community voices are brought to that decision.
Thank you. Mark, what are your thoughts?
Well, first and foremost, in being strategic and determining what to do with the reforms that are pushed through by the Labor government, or the other option of the National Party repeal, I think understanding how we got here is the first step. So I think it's entirely regrettable that the Western Bay Council has put up the white flag and surrendered and rolled over. I think we actually need to be very clear that we've been very good at managing our water over the last 30 years, and there is no need to take it over. Secondly, if the Labor government is going to do it, I think we should reinforce the message to them that we believe in subsidiarity. Those that are closest to the issue or the problem or the activity are far better equipped to those that are further afield. So at Entity B, for example, is right away from our local community. So if we went to Entity B and said, we've got a problem in Oda-Morakau, they'd say, well, where's that? So, I mean, the whole thing's completely out of whack. So we need to reinforce the message about local knowledge, local needs, local solutions. Now, you have to play what's in front of you, and as I said, it's regrettable. The government pushes it through. We have to do the best we can do. Now, as far as the National Party is concerned, or National Enact, now is the time to be very clear to them that we don't agree. And so we need to say to them, don't repeal and replace or modify or adjust. Repeal and leave it alone, because we're good at doing it. Those that have problems around the country, Wellington, Auckland and others, go help them out, but leave us alone.
Thanks, Mark. James.
The question was actually about how do we ensure council is ready either way. And so we've heard a lot about people's opinions about Three Waters, and that's fair enough. But how can council be ready either way, whether the reforms go ahead as they're currently planned, or whether they get repealed or partly repealed? And the way to do that is with a strong, capable team of staff who can plan for different eventualities and have the backed up by the agility of elected members to respond to situations. In addition to that, it will be the mayor's job to advocate and have the relationships with central government and other stakeholders so that they can respond to whatever central government decides to throw at it. And we need to understand that there's no perfect solution. If there's a perfect solution, we would have done that already years ago. So there are trade-offs involved. You can't have control, good water and environmental outcomes and fairness. You can only have two of those three, and you've got to pick which one we have. The community's never really been involved in that debate, which I think is a shame, and it's been communicated exceptionally poorly. But we just need to understand what might be coming and what trade-offs there are and what the community feels about it.
Thank you, James. Paul, your turn.
Thank you, Kirsty. What I notice is I served my electrical apprenticeship at the Whakatane board mills in '76. I'm a numbers man. I like numbers. I always have. And all the literature that they've given me so far to read, because I've been interested in reading, it doesn't stack up. The numbers don't lie. There's wastage. What would a mayor do if he saw that it was wasting? Would he just let it go and go, oh, well, you know, too bad? It doesn't matter, we'll try and make it up somewhere else. It's criminal. Wasting taxpayers' money and you make a mistake. Too bad. Read the literature that's out there. They gave it all to me. I didn't like it. What's all this? I had to do research. Had to get somebody to help me do research. What does this mean? The numbers don't add up. We've got enough money to do it all. To do it all. If we stop wasting it. That's all I have, Kirsty.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul. Very interesting and very important topics to talk about, aren't they? Next up, we'll start off with you, Hori Bop, and question 2 for this section, Thinking Strategically, is the Council has just set 5 new strategic priorities. In a nutshell, these are community-led outcomes, partnerships with tangata whenua, delivering housing, and being future-ready. How would you as Mayor deliver on these strategic priorities while balancing this with what the community needs?
Well, housing's a big one, and housing's a nationwide problem. And in fact, the submission process is just now open for the new resource consent. That's up to 11 metres you can go for your life, and above 11 metres the resource consent gets a little bit harder, up to 21 metres. So there's already structure been put in place to deal with housing, and I think the Western Bay just has to work hard to make sure that they go hard with this kaupapa. There needs to be more nodal, and we need to go up. We can't rely on the quarter-acre section anymore to house the influx that we're going to have. Western Bay is going to grow dramatically, I believe, and so if we don't go nodal and upwards, well, you're going to struggle. And we've got a lot of farmland that we have to protect. There's already talk around the place about protecting our valuable farmland, the well-producing stuff, so we've got to be aware of that. But yeah, housing's the big one. Diversity, you've got to take the people with you again. If you're not talking to the whole community, that's tangata whenua, that's ratepayers, that's the rural sector as well as the town sector. As I say, Western Bay is a very unique region. You've got 3 huge towns in Katikati, Mokoroa and Tipuke and Te Puna, so you've got 4 big urban type areas basically, and then you've got a massive rural area. So you've got to take everyone with you, big job.
Thank you. John,
Sorry, I couldn't keep up.
do you want me to repeat the question? It's a
Yes,
big question,
please.
it's a lot. I'll tell you what it is again. In a nutshell, the new strategic pillars for the council are community-led outcomes, partnerships with tangata whenua, delivering housing, and being future ready. So, how would you as a mayor deliver on these strategic priorities while balancing this with what the community needs?
Okay, thank you. Well, the first one you said was community-led outcomes, and that's fundamental to the discussion we had earlier about listening to the communities. And so it's starts with going out to the communities and explaining to them what the options and opportunities are before us, and drawing out from them their desires and where they want to go. And as you say, housing's been a real big issue right around our country for a number of years now, and we need to put a lot of emphasis into that. But it's again getting feedback from the communities about what is helpful to them. Partnership with tangata whenua is really just the same to me. It's going out, talking to the people and listening to what they have to say and understanding their issues and how we can draw people together to achieve common goals. And future priorities is simply, not simply, that's probably the wrong word, it's a very complex issue, but there are a lot of things ahead of us. We can see so many changes and so much uncertainty in our world today, but climate change is one that's talked about a lot by people and raises a lot of fear for young people. But it's probably no different to the many of the events that perhaps some of us faced in our younger days, such as fears around nuclear armaments and all sorts of things like that. So I cannot do more than emphasise the need to go and talk to the communities and understand what they want.
Thank you, John. Don, do you have the question and do you have any voice left?
Yeah, I'm good.
Good.
Kerry warned me down there that candidates stray off the answers somewhat, so here it comes, Kerry. Here it goes again. Look, those pillars are great, but I'd put them just below the real basics, that is the core business of our business. I'd focus on them first. Obviously, future ready. I believe the financial strength of our balance sheet and our staff and our area, we are future ready. We can tackle anything. We have the resources. We have a massive balance sheet as we are. I've said my commitment to housing. It's going to be a committee. I've said my commitment to the community. We're going to get out there. And obviously our partnership with tangata whenua, has to be enhanced, has to be develop further. So I'm fully behind all 4 of those pillars, but like I said, rates are a crude tool. They are based on the valuation of your property. A young couple starting out with an $800,000 mortgage, they don't get any relief from paying their rates. The government talked about wealth tax and everyone was up in arms. Well, it would affect us, people like our generation with a bit of equity behind us. We would actually be paying it. The young ones starting off would deduct their mortgage and do it. That doesn't happen with rates, so that's where I keep harping on about going back to the core. Rates are crude. GST and income tax are there to address a number of those issues, and we have to advocate, and central government have to deliver on them. Like I said, rates are a crude way of collecting money. Thanks.
Spot on.
Yep.
Swarry.
I'm going to rest on what I see the role of council is in terms of they provide oversight to planning and strategy, procurement and service delivery, and resting again that there are some legal obligations that we're required to meet to ensure that there is broad participation from each of these communities. My campaign is based on bringing community voice to lead the change and really being intentional and walking with a purpose alongside those key areas. So again, it's really important that we take a learning approach to how we deliver on this as a council, and in that we need to look at the community interfaces, so who isn't being present in these discussions, who's left off, and then also looking at the way that we diversify engagement with them, understanding and supporting them to be able to lead the process as opposed to receive the process from us as officially the stewards of that engagement.
Thank you. Mark.
Thank you. 4 parts: housing, economic driven, working with developers around good planning, infrastructure delivery, bearing in mind that there's no shortage of capital, nor are there no shortages of developers wanting to be in that space. Social housing essentially rests with central government. We can play a part by facilitating public-private partnerships and reminding central government of their need to invest in our district. Tangata whenua, partnership, participation, protection, mutual understanding, respecting the values of our diversity and our people, particular engagement with Māori through Committee Māori, and through that engaging not only between council and Māori but bringing other people into the discussion, and remembering ultimately that we are one, community-led, by community, for community, empowering community groups and others, enabling them through the introduction of third-party funding as an example, grants, those sorts of things to enable community-led projects to flourish, and lots of examples on the Western Bay over the last few years. And being future ready is about relationships, so our relationships with central government, regional council, all those sort of people, the ability to have time and space and not rush these things. So what reform is needed? How do we communicate it? How do we then agree solutions in a timetable that has the support of community at large?
Mark. Do you want me to repeat the question, James, or are you okay?
No, I'm good now, thanks.
You're okay.
Look, council does best when it works with and enables communities. With housing, it's a really exciting space at this point. Council has resolved to fill some of the gaps in the housing continuum, things like affordable housing particularly. Council has the potential to use its balance sheet, not to just spend the money and walk away, but to enable and use its what they call patient capital. So they get the money back, but it enables the housing to take place. With Tangata Whenua, again, working in partnership. There's some amazing partnerships that are happening, like Te Mayoral Kaituna River Authority, working to restore the Kaituna. I've been on the Katikati Wastewater Alternative Options Group, which is working to envisage better treatments or disposal options for wastewater in Katikati. And Tangata Whenua have provided really awesome input to that, and we just work much better when we do that together. So yeah, work together and listen to the community again.
James, thank you. Paul.
Thank you, Kirsty. So I've written down housing is tackled with exactly what James said. I mean, I'd forgotten about that. Enable people. Enable people to be able to do that. And the people that can do that are tangata whenua. We've got heaps of land. No pūtea. Council can do that. That'd be a good thing. Community. There's 77 people in this room. 5 Māori, 1 Nepalese, and I want to say a big number. I'm going to say there's 5,000 people streaming this now. Out of a rohe of 41,000 eligible voters. And this is the community that we're making huge decisions for a huge area. Just look. It's an unanswerable question. Look. If you want it to go the way that it's always been, vote for these people, because they know what they're doing.
Thank you, Paul. Rodney, you're up.
It's a big question for 90 seconds, but here goes. Housing is the more straightforward one. The traditional role of council was to enable, to land supply. We've done a little bit of elderly housing. We came up with a good plan that, using the balance sheet, that would be paid for and not land up in the ratepayer. I gather that's under a bit of a strain due to rising interest rates and construction costs. We haven't done social housing before, as far as I know, and that is something that we need to have a conversation about. Is that an area that our residents and ratepayers want us to get into? And that brings us to that kind of community-led communication. If we're going to go in new areas, then we have to bring people with us and not just announce it from the top. So that's going to be a big task, and that goes for all kinds of things. The last 3 nights, there's a very brief summary because there's a lot to cover here. The last 3 nights I've been listening to the candidates at the ward level. And what I've been very impressed with is the mature approach of tangata whenua. They really have been very clear in looking for solutions that help everybody. And I think we can do more with that. That's what partnership is about, going to people with humility and saying, what's your idea? Because the Maori viewpoint is often different and it's often valuable. The only thing I'd add to that is that we do need to do a bit more to bring the other people along so that they don't feel sort of sideswiped by that. But I do think the partnership has benefits for Maori and it has benefits for everybody if we do it well. And there goes the future.
Thank you, Rodney. The next one, we'll start off with you, John. It's your chance to get stuck in. An integral part of being mayor is fostering and nurturing key relationships with partners such as central government, neighbouring councils, local businesses and iwi. So how would you work with these groups to take the Western Bay sub-region forward?
Yes, well, I guess I'm fortunate that for the last 3 years I've been Deputy Mayor and I've been able to establish relationships with quite a number of people in those categories. I was recently able to host the Associate Minister of Local Government, Kieran McAnulty, in Council when Mayor Webber was struck down with COVID. I've worked with groups such as Smart Growth, Tamara Okaituna Authority and others that have enabled me to interact with regional councillors, councillors from Tauranga City, Rotorua, and at times, but less so, with those from Wakatani, Apotiki and Mayoral. So that's given me a good grounding, but it's about keeping in touch with those people, understanding where we have commonality of interest and developing those connections so that we can help each other to achieve the goals that we have for our district. So essentially that's how it's fostering those connections that I've already made.
Thanks. Off you go, Don.
Great. Yeah, under Mayor Gary, he gave me the opportunity to be part of the Regional Transport Committee, working with the other mayors of the district. I've been part of the regional public transport system. I've been on Smart Growth with John here for the last 6 years. I've worked with him. I see Mayor Faylene has been returned unopposed in Mayoral. If Mayor Lynn and Mayor Judy return in Aporiki and Whakatane, and we possibly have a Mayor Tanya in Rotorua, and possibly Chair, or definitely Chair Anne is sitting here in Tauranga. So I'd be more than happy to join with those 5 women, 3 Wahine Maori women, as part of the leaders of the Bay of Plenty. I'll probably get beaten up a bit by those 5 actually, but that's all right. I'll work with them. Obviously, with central government relationships, it's going to be an interesting time next year. Really, by the time this council's sworn in November, through the Christmas break, we're going in, building into an election next year. Man, they're going to come beating at our door. I don't think we'll get a whole lot of sense. We're going to get a lot of promises out of everyone. Certainly, I'd make the door open to Labor, to the Greens, to ACT, to National, to come in and talk to us. We've had spasmodic visits from time to time, but certainly open the door to them. The real work starts from October next year, I think, with whichever way the government forms in the country, taking it forward. Then we'll really get down to work. There's going to be some major changes there, so central government, hold that space for 10 months.
Thanks, Don. You keep getting cut off. Sorry, you're great at keeping to time. How would you develop these key relationships?
My approach to relationships is to first and foremost understand the value that they have to springboard into possibilities and different pathways. So taking my Māori world view of whanaungatanga and the idea that you consistently work to make a family and that you consistently commit to a common goal through your shared actions. I also believe that relationships are really critical because they summon a threshold of accountability and they provide the platform through which you can negotiate expectations, so shared expectations. A lot of time they prattle on about being on a shared journey, but I like to qualify the journey. You can't be on a journey if you haven't first discussed the destination. So you have to have a common understanding of what the destination is, and my destination in this campaign is clear. I want to bring community voice to lead the change and bring about a new way of decision making in the Western Bay.
Thank you. Mark.
Thank you. So in my work in economic development in recent years, I've had significant engagement with members of Parliament, cabinet ministers from both the previous national government, the Labor New Zealand First government, and the current Labor government. Ongoing relationships with mayors of neighbouring districts, particularly Whakatane, Kawerau, Rotorua, Tauranga, pre the commissioners, and also currently with the commissioners. Smart growth relationships by participating in the forums and following the work of Smart Growth, the leaders group. The Bay of Connections and the Bay of Plenty Regional Council in a number of different ways with forums. Also done many submissions over these last few years to these bodies, some of them very detailed, and an understanding of things that were critical to the area in which I particularly worked, or the geographic region. Also international relationships where we've hosted people from overseas, endeavoured to sell a value proposition and looking for investment. So I think that I've got the capability to engage and work with people from all walks of life, and with those current relationships we could further enhance them for the benefit of the Western Bay.
Thank you, Mark. James.
Yes, it is all about relationships, and Mark is right in that. I have endeavoured to build those relationships, and whether it's with government or iwi, we get those relationships also through the Tangata Whenua Partnership Forums, government ministers when they come to visit us. I was there with Kieran McAnulty as well, and talk to them and see what you can achieve together. You need to work with whoever's in power. There's no point being completely partisan and then just refusing to work with the next guys, because it changes every 3 years. You need to present a compelling case with evidence-based compelling case, so that when you present these to some of the decision makers, particularly in central government, they'll listen. They don't feel like they're just being lobbied. So yeah, all about relationships. I'll endeavour to form those, as I already am, and see what we can achieve for our district and our communities.
Thank you. Paul.
Kia ora, Kirsty. I'm going to say it's the authenticity of the sharing, when you share yourself with nothing left out. It lands well. I don't have to tell you guys what you already know. But sometimes there's always something missing, because you should be able to pick up who tells the truth and who doesn't. Because I certainly can. I always have. You know when somebody's telling tittles. You know when somebody's, not too shy on that. So it doesn't matter whether it's government. I know there's protocols and stuff like that, but when you talk to somebody from government, they're just like you and me, but there's protocols that you have to do. All this relationship stuff, it's not about relationships. It's about authenticity, being authentic, speaking from the heart. We all got one. It just stopped beating. And now we're numb by it. It disappoints me. I'm just here to shake things up. I'm not attached to the result. Thank you, Kirsty.
Thank you, Paul. Rodney.
I'm going to steal my homework. Commonality is true. Destination is definitely true. Listening is definitely true, and authenticity is certainly true. I think the humility also comes into it. You know, people aren't talking to the mayor because he has a bright orange shirt or a lovely big bald head. They're talking to you for your position. So, you know, when you're moved on, you'll be forgotten very quickly. So, you know, you're representing your public, your residents, your ratepayers, and your team. And it means working with humility. What do we need? What do you need? And that's where the commonality comes in, right? Achieving a good result. That doesn't mean, you know, I want a bigger slice of the pie. It's about growing the pie, to use a cliche. I'm not been on council, so I haven't been on any committees. The only relationship I have with a cabinet minister is in the family. I worked in corporate world for 18 years, and my last role was in India, in Bangalore. I had a team of about 120 young people, very bright, much brighter than me. And I was sent there with a job of fix it or close it. And in any corporate situation, the further you are from head office, the weaker you are. And believe me, we were in a pretty precarious position in India. So how did we turn that around? We focused on our strengths, we worked out what other people needed and what they didn't need, and we built a strong team that was able to build relationships across the Atlantic, across the Pacific. Well, by the time I left, we'd got it up to 250 people. The company invested in us because we were actually able to turn things around.
Thanks, Rodney. Corey Bob.
Well, I suppose the question deals with being the mettle of the mayor, really. You go into the voting booth for the general election and you've got your own personal view on who you're going to vote for, but then the government of your choice might not be delivered, but you still have to deal professionally with that government, whether you like it or not. You have to deal professionally, good communication skills, good listening skills, empathy and compromise. But at the end of the day also, you need to put your little business hat on and not negotiate your region down the drain, as it were. From what I understand from the three candidates meetings that I've been to so far, Tauranga City Council and Western Bay District Council have been able to negotiate very good outcomes for water supply and sewage outfall with the Mokoro plugging into the Tauranga system and the Waiari system out at the back of Te Puke, where they work together to try and find a good outcome. And I commend them on that, and good on the forebearers that have done that for us. And we need to keep that going. But at the end of the day, we don't give away what we've got as well. So there has to be a good compromise there. It's like a sort of a marriage, really. You're getting married and you've got your little quarter-acre patch, and Mum says, we're going to have a garden, let's have a nice big garden. And old Dad gets out there and gets stuck into it, and away he goes. And then she comes out and goes, well, actually, why are you digging it there? I thought we might put it over there. And so old Dad sits there and goes, okay. So he wasn't listening, was he?
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together one more time. That was seriously impressive to answer all those questions, thinking strategically on the spot as well. We're now going to take a short 5-minute intermission. During this time, you'll be able to vote on our Slido poll. You'll be able to vote on what our candidates discuss next in our Imagine If question. These are all hypothetical situations, and you'll see what they are. You can vote whether you're here or watching online. If you're online, you'll see a banner down the bottom of your screen. Jump online to the website slido.com and enter the code. If you're here in person, there's this yellow slip. Scan the QR code with your mobile phone, click the link, and if you're having troubles, put your hand up and we'll see if someone can come and help you, or maybe tap your neighbour's shoulder. The event code is 2064022. Right, our time now to introduce to the floor our Bay of Plenty Regional Councillor, Western Bay candidates Sean Newland, Ken Shirley and Julian Fitter. Come on up.
Be kind with your voting, because I did about 20 seconds to formulate an answer to answer it, so give me a nice easy one.
Ken, you're going first. Come on up.
Tēnā koutou. My name's Ken Shirley at Omokaroa, and I'm standing for the Regional Council because I have a strong belief in the importance of local government, and I'm deeply concerned with many of the centralised trends being perpetrated from Wellington that I believe are a threat to local government as we know it. My first working career was as a scientist and manager in water resources and catchment management. I spent a lot of time with potable water supplies, sewage treatment and the protection of natural water, both coastal and marine. For a number of years I was the Deputy Chair of GNS Science through the Christchurch earthquakes and the Kaikoura earthquakes, and GNS Science, as you probably understand, covers tsunami risks, seismology, earthquakes and volcanology for volcanoes, all of a threat and relevance to the Bay of Plenty. I've served as the Chief Executive Officer of 4 national industry associations, the New Zealand Forest Owners Association, again very relevant to the Bay of Plenty, Organics Aotearoa New Zealand, which was about sustainable farming and strongly supported by Comvita, Fonterra and Zespri, Medicines New Zealand, and for the last 10 years prior to moving to Omokaroa, I was the CEO of the Land Transport Forum, which is the national body for freight and logistics and also the roading networks countrywide. And again, we have some very serious roading issues in our region. In the past, I've served as a Member of Parliament over a 21-year span in total, and chaired numerous select committees. I was the chair of the original Resource Management Reform Bill, a long time ago now. I've also served as a Minister of the Crown. I've served as a Minister of Fisheries, Agriculture, Forestry and Health. I'm staunchly opposed to Government's Three Waters proposal, which is a recipe, I believe, for convoluted bureaucracy, a lack of accountability and a sham ownership model. And I believe there's still a chance to turn that round, and I think we've heard some very good comments from some of the mayoral candidates here tonight in that regard. So, ka pai, thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Sean Newland. I'm a 50-year-old business owner from Te Puke. I've had a career with national leadership roles in business, central government, the primary sector and environmental restoration. I'm putting myself forward because I believe I have a skill set and experience that will help deliver great decision making at the Regional Council table. Now that's important because the Regional Council deals with issues that are important for the future prosperity and health of our region. We've got biosecurity, we've got climate change, we've got water management, we've got land use, we've got transport. All of that's important, and there's big decisions being made over the next few years. We need people who can take detail and turn it into deliverable strategy. That is what I've built a career out. I'm a team player who can lead. As I said, I take detail and I turn it into deliverable strategy that makes change and prepares us for the future. That is what I've done in every role I've had, in every organisation I've been in. I take people with me. One of my proudest moments was while I was working for Fonterra, being trusted by Doc Naitahu and the local council. They said, you go away and draft up the rules, the land use rules. We know that we can trust you to do that. I take people with me, I work with people. I'm not a single issue person. I don't think you can be a good councillor and just be focused and passionate on one area of interest to you. If you want to do the job well, you need to be passionate. You need to be able to get into every issue that comes up and help make good decisions. I'm young, I've got energy, I've got good experience and skill set, and I've got the time now to put into this. So I'm offering my services to the community. Thank you for listening. Cheers.
Kia ora koutou, ko Julian Whita aho. I too am young. I think I was 18 the last time I looked. I think most of you still are actually as well, isn't it? Age is not the body, it's the mind. So, you know, don't be ageist, please. Look, I'm the chair of the Makatu Natural Wetlands Society. I'm the chair and founder of the Bay Conservation Alliance. I make no bones about it. I'm an environmentalist. I'm a conservationist. I believe in our environment. I believe that the environment needs a voice on regional council, and I believe that I can be that voice. I think it's really important that we place the communities and the people in them absolutely up front, but without the environment behind them, our communities won't survive. We need that to look after the environment if we're looking to look after our communities. So people are important, and Bill Clinton may have said it's the economy stupid. I would say, sorry, it's the environment stupid. Because look at the problems we face. Look at the issue of climate change. I'm a bit worried that none of the mayoral candidates mentioned climate change once, I don't think. And yet that is the preeminent problem that's facing the whole of the Bay of Plenty, and especially our coastal communities, a really significant issue that we haven't really started to address in any way at all. Greenhouse gas emissions, have we really looked at that at all? Public transport, I put in a submission to the regional public transport plan. I'm a passionate believer in getting our public transport right. Some people will say, you know, Julian's first comment at any of those events will be rail, rail, rail. And I really would like to rail against the way we have just tried, we're looking at developing and developing without looking at the consequences of what we're doing at the moment. And I take, you know, I'm partly to blame for that, I believe, but so is everybody here in this room, because we all are conveniently turning a blind eye. And we have got to open our eyes and have got to look forward and see what we really can do and how we can look after our environment. If we look after our environment, then yes, we will start to have, we will looking after our people as well. But until we start doing that, taking it really seriously, I think we have a real problem. And I think, I would say especially, look, I'm interested in three waters, but my three waters are the rivers, the lakes and the harbours. Those are just as important, in fact more important, because if we don't clean those up, we won't have it won't matter about the other three waters really. We won't have a human species that's going to be living. We need to look at those three waters and look at those as the most important issues that we have. So I think, you know, regional council has a really big role to play, and I would hope that I would be able to put myself forward, put the environment first, put you first, because you need the environment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julian. And we will now hear from Jane Nees. She couldn't be here today, but she has sent this video in for all of you.
Hi, I'm Jane Nees. I've represented the Western Bay on the Bay of Plenty Regional Council for the past 5 terms, and for the last 3 of those, I've been Deputy Chair. I'm running again this election because of the raft of changes heading our way from central government, and I believe now more than ever we need strong, experienced people around the council table. Key focus areas for me are responding to climate change, protecting and enhancing our environment, particularly our fresh water and our biodiversity, ensuring we hear strong local voices and we have a strong local democracy, and that we are working closely with our neighbouring councils and with our communities and volunteers to ensure that they achieve their aspirations. I have a website, janenees.co.nz, and I encourage you to check it out to find out more about me, what I believe in, and why you should vote for me.
A big ngā mihi to Jane, to Julian, to Sean and to Ken, our Bay of Plenty Regional Council candidates. Thank you so much for coming along this evening. Right, settle back into your seats because we've got another 2 sections to go. We've got a scenario-based section, which you've been able to vote on, and then quick fire. But just a quick reminder of what we're all doing here tonight. Make sure you do get out and vote and share the message with those that need encouraging. You'll receive the voting papers in the mail from the 16th to the 21st of September, and voting day is on the 8th of October. Right, are you all ready for our Imagine If scenario-based section? Seems like it. Let's get stuck in. We'll start off with you, Don, since you missed out on going first. The question that you will all have the same scenario today, 90 seconds each. Once again, Greer's on the clock. The theme is RSE workers in housing. Here is your scenario. The borders have reopened and we have an influx of recognised seasonal employers, workers seeking accommodation. This has seen motor camps and other accommodation options full, with residents unable to get into rental accommodation. How would you address this issue? Take a moment if you need.
Right, housing, great stuff. RSE workers, yes, very valuable, as all workers in our province. Obviously, we have to provide accommodation fast, and the fastest way to do that would be portable accommodation. There's examples of this already in place where mass production, they can make them in modular form, get them in place. We have the district scheme, as Margaret Teague calls it. Sorry, the, what's it called? District. The district plan. Thank you, James. The district plan up for review. It's got to be much more permissive. We've got to be able to get things going. Currently, we're restricted to just 1 dwelling per property with a chance of a secondary dwelling, and that's restricted to only 60 square metres. So that has to be freed up. So we have to be much more nimble and work faster. That's going to be the only way we can solve it. Obviously, we've done examples like a community wastewater scheme for drainage out at Ongaree Point, where we've connected 50 properties up into just 1 drainage field, rather than establish septic tanks at all these different outfits if they aren't connected to the wastewater scheme. So things like that is how we will solve it, but we have to get onto that fast. They actually trucked up all that settlement that's been built out at Tipuna for the TNL. All those were constructed in Nelson, trucked up, and there's 150 staff working on that village. So it shows how fast that's actually been constructed. Wastewater fields have been put in place adjacent to the TNL, and Paul's shutting me down. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Don.
Yeah,
Do you need me to repeat the question?
No.
No, you're okay. Okay, off you go. You're on the clock.
Yeah, I'd really like to place this question in the context of the other concepts that we talked about as being vital to the role, so relationships, the understanding of community, and really looking at the way that we understand RSC. So I agree with Don in terms of them being a really valuable part of our community, part of the economic drivers. We're a big horticultural area, but I think it's about looking at the policy levers and the limitations that that creates for those people who are coming to work here. Lived experience, so a lot of RSC workers are from the Pacific Islands, my mother's Great Island in particular, and I would want to keep the approaches that we have to that human-centred and really informed by their lived experience. So if we're going to devise or define what responses we can have to that situation, we really need to be able to understand what their lived experiences of it is and how we can address that. I also think it's inviting the idea of institutional thinking versus innovative thinking, so we need to be able to understand this problem innovatively. Institutional thinking is saying, oh, we'll put more regulations around it, we'll get a big house up, we'll do this, and we'll push that out as best practice, but institutional thinking won't change problems that are of this magnitude in our area. So yeah, that's how I see that. Last thing, where there are fractured relationships about what the problems are or fractured understandings of what the drivers are, the voice of the person who is most impacted is the one that falls off the table first, and I'd like to centre that in the response to housing for RSC.
Thank you, Swari. Mark.
I've had first-hand experience of this in recent times. So a redundant building needed to be filled, and finding a developer investor to be part of the solution. So a big building, Main Street at Te Puke, a 50-bed accommodation unit to go upstairs, and the developer saying, I'd like to do more of it. So multi-solutions, redundant buildings, and by redundant I mean they're usable, developers wanting to be part of the solution, council being swift around helping them with consenting and permits, etc. Equally, redundant land, because there's lots of redundant land that we have in our district, portable housing, modern technology around wastewater treatment. There are ways that we could very quickly meet growing numbers of RSCs. The other point is that we need to go back to the pastoral care that we historically gave RSCs. It's tapered off in the last season or two. Important that we get around them in communities and make sure they're safe, and equally our communities are safe. So I think with a very focused and concentrated effort around this, we could make it happen quickly, we could make it sustainable, and again, it's aligned to the big economic driver of kiwi fruit. So we have to make it a priority for council, because kiwi fruit is critical to our future growth, very aspirational, gives us recognition the world over. Zespri signed with the support of the Western Bay Council, a new sister city relationship in Italy. There are many, many things that we can do to make this happen quickly. Thank you.
Thank you. James, your time starts now.
Council's role is to enable housing through the district plan, as Don said. Yeah. But also, it's ultimately the kiwi fruit industry's responsibility to provide the accommodation for its RSC workers. There are a large number of new kiwi fruit orchards being constructed at the moment. I'm seeing not so many houses or accommodation being constructed, and I think the two should go hand in hand. You can't just keep building orchards and assume that the workers can be accommodated somehow on a wish and a prayer. But as Mark said, the real issue at the moment, I feel, is the pastoral care, but also the housing standards. There's no point expanding housing if you're putting people in uninsulated sheds and substandard conditions. And I think I would encourage my council to make sure that those standards are adhered to, the basic building standards, so that we don't have vulnerable people who are away from their family and whānau suffering in inadequate conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul.
Thank you, Kirsty. Well, you know my view on this. It's slavery. I might just use up my 90 seconds on that word. In this country, abusing workers that come in and do our work. So you know my view on that, so I won't repeat it. If you didn't hear it, too bad. You wouldn't hear it the second time. There's something about older people and bowel cancer that is killing us. And we don't know that it's happening. That's why I'm wearing this silly T-shirt. They came down to the Ho order and did a promotional thing. I said, yeah, I'll do that. I'm doing the Mayoral thing, are you? I said, listen, I'll wear your T-shirt. Will you? I said, yeah, I'll put it on over my suit. Paul, we're very grateful. Okay. This is an electrician, retired for 3 years, on a pension out at Makatu. And I get to stand in front of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Rodney.
One of the fun parts about these with so many candidates is a lot of things being covered already. I mean, this is a classic case where you need to sit with the people involved. Traditionally, I'm sure that's the pack houses, and they do have a big role to play with this. Down the road from my warehouse where I work, Eastpack has put in a motor camp of its own, right, to try and cater for RSE workers. So council is an enabler. It needs to make things work. It needs to maintain standards for sure. I would also, anything I'd add is probably that we also need to see what the RSEs want, right? It's all well saying we'll build you all singing, dancing things, but if it's not in the right place or they can't afford it, then it'll sit empty. So there is no one big solution. It's about finding small solutions that suit the different people that are involved, but talking to the people involved from all angles, the pack houses, the RSEs, the others that are living there. There is also a traffic issue, of course. Te Puke knows this very well. A lot of RSEs are living in Papamoa and coming through, and the roads can't cope. So, there's quite a lot to this that is not going to be easily solved. But I think, if the pack houses want to house people and we can do it in a way that the RSE people want, then we've got the beginnings of a solution. I'm not going to pretend to know all the answers.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, once again, it comes back to almost the garden analogy, really. What do you want and what don't you want? And I think Rodney makes a good point that you need to talk to the players in the industry on what's required. RSE workers, kiwi fruit growers, and so on. I've had experience with the Ongatete pack houses and operations out there. I was a driver, and from what I can see, they put up a fantastic village for their RSE workers, and their pastoral care was right on the button. I saw some of these Samoans there, and I thought they'll be great in our rugby team and for Rangatoa. And I jacked up a whole little bus for them to transport them to Rangatoa for practices and play the games, and they were as keen as mustard. They were into this, and the pastoral carer come along to me and says, Hori, can you just cool your heels a little bit here? We need them to pick kiwi fruit, and if they get injured playing rugby, they're back home and they're without any more money, and that's going to be detrimental to their family, and so on and so on and so on, all the knock-on effects. So I thought they handled things very, very well. We do hear some court cases there where people aren't looking after the RSE workers in rented accommodation, and that comes down to regulation again. You've got to get out there and regulate the industry as far as that goes and make sure that they are being looked after. Where's the government on that issue in doing that and getting around, not just with kiwi fruit workers, apple and pear down in the Hawke's Bay and the wine workers down in Marlborough. Let's get out there and regulate this industry so that people are looked after.
Thank you. John.
Oh, sorry, John. She's right. Thank you very much. Very topical issue, and as Don said at the beginning, RSE workers are a wonderful asset to our country and our industries that we have in our community here. And it's a great reward for those people who come too, because they're able to return significant funds to the islands to assist with things like their children's education, which are not paid for out of taxes like they are here. And so there's a whole lot of two-way benefits. Yes, I've seen instances where some have been not treated as well as they should, and I know a very personal instance to us where we provided heaters for some people to keep them warm, and they were removed by the landlord because they used too much power. On the other hand, I've seen some pretty fantastic facilities, and I've had the privilege of taking orchardists who were concerned about how they provided for their workers to inspect those facilities. Right now, every day when I drive down the road, I go through a very large complex currently under construction to house RSE workers. Yes, I believe there is more we can do to enable and encourage, and others have cited examples of how this can be done, but I would also say that I'll give another example of a facility quite near to me where perhaps I better stop.
Thanks very much, Don. And thank you so much to our candidates. That is our imaginative section. Thank you so much to everyone who voted. That was what you wanted to hear about. So I hope they answered your questions. Now that we've covered all the major topics, all the major issues, it is time to have a bit of fun. We're doing a quick fire where I'll ask each candidate certain questions. There may be some repeats, and I have literally shuffled the cards, so this is completely random. We'll start off with you, James. First, it's yes or no, this quick fire question, so no if, buts or maybes. Is regional collaboration important to manage the district's growth?
Yes.
We need to improve our current housing before promoting more population growth.
Sorry, can you repeat that, please?
We need to improve our current housing before promoting more population growth.
Yes.
Climate emergency.
Yes.
Transfer stations in our district.
Yes.
Cultural diversity makes it harder to ensure all residents' needs are being met.
Yes.
James, thank you. Don, you're up next. Climate emergency?
No.
Don, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
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 We'll get to you, John.
One at a time. Yep.
Don, climate emergency.
No.
Is freedom of speech in danger in Aotearoa, New Zealand?
No.
Should there be specific Māori representation on council?
Yes.
We need to improve our current housing before promoting more population growth.
Yes.
Is regional collaboration important to manage the district's growth?
Absolutely breaking the rules. Yes.
Thanks, Don.
Thanks.
Corey Bob, you're next. We need to improve our current housing before promoting more population growth.
Yes.
The local voice is best represented through community boards.
Yes.
Should there be specific Māori representation on council?
Yes.
Transfer stations in our district?
Yes.
Is regional collaboration important to manage the district's growth?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Swari, transfer stations in our district?
Yes.
Is regional collaboration important to manage the district's growth?
Yes.
We need to improve our current housing before promoting more population growth.
Yes.
Should the Western Bay remain in local government New Zealand?
Yes.
Cultural diversity makes it harder to ensure all residents' needs are being met.
No.
Thank you.
It makes it better.
Paul.
Komotu.
Paul, is freedom of speech in danger in Aotearoa?
Say the question again.
Is
Louder.
Is freedom of speech in danger in Aotearoa?
Call.
That's a no. Is regional collaboration important to manage the district's growth?
Aye.
Yes. Should there be specific Māori representation on council?
Aye.
Yes. Cultural diversity makes it harder to ensure all residents' needs are being met.
Aye.
Yes. We need to improve our current housing before promoting more population growth.
Aye.
Yes. Thank you so much, Paul. Mark. Mark, is freedom of speech in danger in Aotearoa?
No.
Climate emergency?
No.
Should there be specific Māori representation on council?
No.
The local voice is best represented through community boards.
Yes.
Should the Western Bay remain in local government New Zealand?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Now it's your turn, John. John, is freedom of speech in danger in Aotearoa?
No.
Transfer stations in our district?
Yes.
Cultural diversity makes it harder to ensure all residents' needs are being met?
Yes.
Should the Western Bay remain in local government New Zealand?
Yes.
And finally, the local voice is best represented through community boards.
Yes.
Thank you. Rodney.
Yep.
Climate emergency?
No.
Is freedom of speech in danger in Aotearoa?
No.
Should there be specific Māori representation on council?
Yes.
Transfer stations in our district?
Not something I've looked at, but yeah.
Should the Western Bay remain in local government New Zealand?
I knew you were going to ask me that one. Overall, probably yes.
Yes, yes.
Aye.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Well, that is it. We are done and dusted for today. Please put your hands together for Soiree, Mark, James, Paul, Rodney, Horibot, John and Don. These are the people that want to represent you. They're an amazing group of people, as we've heard in the last couple of hours, so do make sure that you get out and vote. That is the next crucial step. You'll receive your voting papers in the mail in the next fortnight between the 16th and 21st of September. Voting day is on the 8th of October. Put it in your calendar. Remind yourself and remind everyone that needs to be. You're all invited to join the Western Bay of Plenty District Council's poll party on the 24th of September as well. It's in 6 different locations across the district. You can look up where they are online. There'll be kai, there'll be giveaways and competitions, plus so much more. Together, let's make sure every vote counts this year, and make sure you bring your completed voting papers and have some fun. Thank you so much for all coming along this evening. Thank you to everyone watching at home as well. And last but not least, thank you to you amazing people as well, our 8 candidates. Ka kite anō and get home safe.